Hi, this is Mike from IELTSAnswers.com. In this video, I would like to talk a little bit about the general writing test, and in particular task 1 where you have to write letters. And I'm going to be introducing my ebook that covers this and also giving you some suggestions and tips in general for writing these letters. So first of all, my ebook, it is available on my website, IELTSAnswers.com. There's a preview version of it if you want to have a look. I do sell it for $9.95. That includes one free task. You can send a letter to me and I'll have a look at it and give you my expert advice on the quality of it and also about how you can make it better. If you prefer traditional books, it is published on Amazon. You can search IELTS Writing, go, and you'll note my books from the orange covers. There's my task 2 book, task 1 academic, and there's the general test down here. So yeah, you can get it on hardcover. If you're in Australia, Amazon does not operate there. You'd have to send me an email on my website, and I actually have hard copy books if you wanted one in Australia. I've sent a few of my students hard copy books just through the Australian Post. So that's another option too. With the ebooks, you can also print those out if you wanted to do it that way as well. So that's another option. Okay, so let's get stuck into it and let's have a look at what my ebook has in it. So let's just go through the table of contents a little bit, and this will give you a bit of an idea too about what's involved with these letters. Okay, so I start with an overview of what's involved with task 1 letter writing. Talk about the grading criteria. This is really important because you want to understand how your writing is going to be assessed so you can make sure that you respond to the task in the right way. Task sequence, that's step by step how to write letters. An explanation of different parts of letters. How should we start the letter? Dear Sir, Madam, for instance. How should we finish the letter? Different types of letters, and essentially this is the structure that I use for the rest of the ebook. So there's different types of letters. There's a couple of ways of distinguishing between them. One's the level of formality, like whether you're writing to a friend or whether you're writing to a stranger or a business, let's say. So the level of formality is really important. And then after that, there's different functions that you might be asked to do, like requesting information, maybe about product information, giving information, so maybe responding to somebody else's questions, making a complaint, maybe you have a noisy neighbour, you need to write a letter to them, making an apology, maybe you bothered a neighbour and now you've got to write and say sorry about the noise you made, thanking someone. And then at the end of this book, I've got some language that you can use for writing your letters. And this is important as well. You need to have the right language for writing letters, just like you do with essays. And then I go over some common errors that people make with the letters. I'll try and get onto this section because this is quite important, especially these first two categories. This is where people often fall down. Often the vocabulary and grammar is very good, but if you don't respond to the task in the right way, which is actually called task achievement, you can severely harm your score. So we'll try and get and talk a little bit about that. Let's see, where should we start? I think what I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit more about different types of letters. I think this is a key point. Okay, so let's just, as I said earlier, the level of formality is quite important with these letters. So let's just talk about that first of all. And that would be part of, usually comes under task achievement, whether you get the level of formality right. So let's say very formal letters, someone you don't know. So it would be inappropriate to use casual, friendly language like "G'day, mate" or something like that. It'd be totally inappropriate. It'd be all right with a friend, but not with someone you didn't know, or let's say a business. That wouldn't be a correct way to phrase things in a letter to a business. You'd want to be more formal dear sir, madam. The reason why I'm writing this letter is. Then we've got semi-formal letters, and these are to acquaintances, people we know, maybe friends or family. We could say sometimes these are informal, and we want to use a friendly tone in particular with these ones. Friends and family, would be strange to write dear sir or madam to a friend. We could just write dear Bob. That would be fine. Be careful with letters to your boss. This presents a challenge because sometimes you may be on a friendly relationship with your boss. I suggest you keep it a bit more formal and use your boss's full name. So instead of Bob, dear Bob Smith, and write your full name at the end of the letter. I just think that's a little bit safer than taking the risk that you write to your boss in a friendly way and then perhaps the reader of your letter, who happens to be the examiner, feels that it's inappropriate. So I'm a big fan of not taking risks. So writing to your boss, better to keep it formal on the whole. Okay, now informal. Just be careful when you do write to friends and family. Don't use things like wanna, like we say, or texting language like LOL. This is inappropriate, and you're going to, again, be taking big risks if you write this sort of thing in your essays. Okay, so be really careful. Try and avoid slang and abbreviations of words. So just, it's better to avoid risk, is the point that I'm trying to make here. For instance, don't write a letter to your neighbour and tell them you're pissed off with them. That's totally inappropriate, and your score could be lowered for that, and it would be under the task achievement. So you could say you're bothered by them, but don't say you're pissed off. It's a kind of dirty slang, and it's inappropriate. Don't use that in the speaking test as well. Okay, so that's the first part, is about getting the tone right. And if you're not sure, better to be a little bit more formal than not formal enough on the whole. Okay, then the other one was, like I said, we should consider the different purposes of letters. Okay, and we should be able to, if you're taking an exam, you should be prepared for all these types of letters. Okay, if you're not sure how to write them, then you're not totally prepared. And I do go into quite a bit of detail. So if we look at the first one, requesting information, here's a sample here. You're going to go to a hotel and you need to request information from the hotel, like about activities and places and what types of rooms they've got and how much it'll cost. Be careful with this type of question. It's actually, there's a few elements in here. If we see when you want to arrive and leave, if you just mention when you arrive, you haven't fulfilled this bullet point, and your score would be lowered for task achievement. And same here, type of room and cost. So be careful. Sometimes there's more than one part to the bullet point, and you must cover both. And if you don't, then you're not going to get a high score for task achievement. On the note of task achievement, be careful for this too. This is sort of like, I'm really now going into some common errors. Any improvements you'd recommend when there's an S. So now you have to suggest more than one improvement. If you only suggested one improvement, well, that's not improvements. So the examiner would be justified in lowering your score for task achievement. You haven't fulfilled what this bullet point's asking for, so be very careful about that. Be careful when there's S's. It might say describe some problems that occurred. That means more than one. All right, let me just show you one of the types of letters and how I've structured it then. So this one's giving information. So I show you a sample task. Okay. And then I give you some language, how to start your letter, how to end it. Okay, and then some useful information that we might, useful phrases that we might have in fulfilling this function about asking for information. Okay. Sorry, I meant to say giving information. I was wondering why the phrases didn't seem appropriate. Giving information, let's go back and look at the phrase. So here's some phrases we could use to give information. Please find enclosed and maybe a brochure or something like that. May I bring to your attention, and then whatever information it is. The following information may be of use to you. I would also like to draw your attention to. Okay, so some useful phrases that we can use to give information or maybe to highlight information that we're giving. Okay, throughout the book I give you tips under each section as well, just to help. Sometimes people don't like to do a lot of reading. You can focus on some of these tips. Okay, and then a sample for each of the different types of letters. I give you a sample, and I think this is useful. It's not really intended that you memorize each of them. I suppose you could, but the main thing is just to show you how you might use some of the language that I showed you, and also how to structure the letter. If you're writing a formal letter, this is a really good way to start. The purpose of the letter is to, so it makes it very clear what the purpose is. This is an important thing to do. Okay, I just said that it's important. Let's look at the publicly available grading criteria, which there's a link to this on my website under the writing page, and also for the speaking ones on the speaking page. Let's see how important the purpose is then. I'm saying it's important. Let's see how important it is. Well, if you only need 5, good news. If your purpose is not clear all the time, you could still get a 5. That's a good thing. But if your purpose is not clear at all, you're dropping down to a 4. Okay. So what do we have to do to get a 6 then? Presents a purpose that is generally clear. Okay, that's that bit about tone that I was talking about before, that the purpose might be clear, but the tone may not be appropriate. Let's say the reason why I'm writing to you is because of the noise you made last night. So that's good. The purpose is clear, but then the tone would be inappropriate if you said, you really pissed me off. As I said, that's not appropriate tone, even if you're angry with someone, even if you're familiar with somebody. Okay, so it's really important that the purpose is clear, and that's why we want to have that in that first sentence. It could be that if you're writing to a friend, the tone would be wrong to start straight off with purpose. You might want to just use something a bit softer with friends or family, like I hope you're in good health, or it was great to see you last week, or something like that, and then get into the purpose. But with a business letter or a formal letter, just get straight into the purpose of the letter. Okay, then one of the other key points that I always push is to have each of your bullet points. There's always 3 bullet points. Respond to each one of those in their own paragraph. Okay, and if possible, sort of start the paragraph directly addressing the bullet points. That also helps. Okay, makes it really easy for the reader, i.e. the examiner, to see that you've covered all those bullet points. And it makes your letter easier to follow as well. So that's another reason. Okay, and then you can write something like this perhaps towards the end. Then you might want to have some sort of closing for the letter, and then you always want to put these, something like yours sincerely, your best regards, and then your full name if it's a formal letter. If you're writing to your mother, you wouldn't put your last name, would you? That would be a bit strange. So it sort of comes to that idea of tone. But yeah, you always want to have these parts of the letter. That's important to put in there. It's just part of a letter format. So there we can see the whole letter there. Letter should be at least 150 words. It can be longer, but try not to make them too long, because, well, there's a few reasons. 1, you might not finish on time. 2, you really want to use time to proofread your writing if you have time. And then 3, you're not really going to get a higher score just because you've written more. Do try to get roughly equal treatment of each of the bullet points if possible. So avoid just writing one sentence about one of the bullet points, big paragraph about the next. So don't write too little for any of the bullet points, and don't write too much. That's sort of about the maximum that you would want to write. So it's important to get balance, and you can achieve this just when you're practicing. Don't write too much about any one bullet point. Try and respond to each bullet point as fully as you can. Okay, so there's other types of letters in this ebook. I've tried to think of all the common types of letters that get asked, and then giving you a model of each type of letter, giving you language that you can use for each type of letter. Let's see now. Let's just have a look at a couple of common errors, and then I think we'll stop this video. But it's worth just having a look at a couple of the key issues. Well, just to summarize these, one of the key problems is not responding to one of these bullet points, and that has a devastating effect on your score. I'll show you just so you're presents but inadequately covers key features bullet points. Key features would be more about the academic, but here the bullet points not so they're covered but not completely. Like, for example, maybe the question says problems, but it's not fully addressed. Maybe only one problem's mentioned. But if you completely miss one of the bullet points out, then you're down here because you haven't covered all the bullet points. Or it says may confuse. If you got the wrong response to one of the bullet points, then you could be down here if you misunderstood it. To get to a 5, you've got to cover all the bullet points. And then let's look up what we need to do for a 6. General tone. So we talked about the purpose and the tone, but here bullet points. So presents inadequately, highlights the bullet points, highlights more about the report writing, presents inadequately, covers the bullet points, let's say. So if it asks for problems, you give problems. Okay, so it's really important to get to 6 to fully respond to the bullet points. Otherwise, you're heading for 5 and below. And I've mentioned this one already, not responding to all parts of the bullet point. Okay. This one, when you want to arrive and leave, back to that hotel letter. So if you just mention when you want to arrive, haven't fully covered it, that's looking at like a 5. So not acceptable if you're trying to get a decent score for the exam. This one I mentioned already as well, not giving a balanced answer to all 3 questions. Where possible, respond to all of them fully. Don't have a huge paragraph responding to one and then a couple of little paragraphs responding to the other ones. So that's another really important point, and again I've mentioned that. Tone I mentioned already, and it's extremely important. Another one's the format of the letter. Even though the question uses bullet points, you shouldn't use bullet points in yours. Normally we don't write our name in the body of the essay. We normally have it at the bottom. Now that can be a problem when you're asked to introduce yourself. Sometimes the bullet point says introduce yourself. It's not asking you to do this, but it is asking for this to give information about yourself. Reason why we don't put our name in the body of the letter is because that's in the at the ending. Okay. I've mentioned this about not writing the surname for a formal letter. That's an important thing. Cohesion and coherence, often not understood well. Not clearly answering a question in one place. So maybe you respond to a bullet point and your response is separated and split between 2 paragraphs. Not ideal. Try to always cover each bullet point in its own paragraph. Poor topic sentence. Just like essays, we want our first sentence of each paragraph to indicate which of the bullet points we're responding to make it clear. If it doesn't come to the end of the paragraph, then that makes it more difficult to understand and it lowers your score for coherence. Coherence is about understandability, right? Vocabulary. This could affect your vocabulary. It could affect your score for grammar, but be careful about S endings. These are really common. And also be careful about getting the right forms of words. Manage and management. We need to management the environment better. We need to manage it better. So this counts under vocabulary or lexical resource. Try not to keep repeating the same words. Try and use words that are different to the task. We can rephrase words, or we can change the form of words, maybe from prepared to preparation. Okay, rephrasing, really important. Some things we say when we're speaking, but not when we're writing. I reckon you should not write reckon. Okay, so trying to avoid that, trying to avoid cliches. This is a great one. A great example of of a cliche. Just like every coin has two sides. I used to read this almost every essay. Sometimes it crops up in letters. Cliche, overused expression, a kind of ugly English, I call it. Grammar, articles. You really got to try and work on these. They're minor errors, but if you don't have control over them, that's going to send your score lower. Avoid using repetitive sentence structures, which I'm showing you here, just starting each sentence. I am, I am, I am, I am. So you don't want repetitive sentence structures. You don't want short, simple sentences. It's true, they might have less errors, but let's have a look at the grading criteria and see why we don't want a whole lot of short, simple sentences. Well, a 6, adequate range. Oh, sorry, that's on vocabulary. Over here. Uses a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. So we want to show that we have different types of sentences. For 7, uses a variety of complex structures. That's where we have a dependent and independent clause, and we join them together with things like relative pronouns or if phrases. So for 7, you need to show a variety of complex sentence structures. Also, error-free sentences, frequent error-free sentences. Okay. So not only you need to use a variety of sentences, but you also need sentences without errors. That's why I'm saying you've got to get control over things like articles, a and the. Okay, so that's really important. Vocabulary, using a range of vocabulary. So both of these, lexical, resource, and grammar, it's about showing talent and not having too many mistakes. You need both of them to score well. If you've got one of them, you might be down here. So you might not have a lot of mistakes, but there's not really a wide range of sentence types. There's not really a lot of high-level vocabulary, and then you're down here. Okay, so that gives you some sort of idea about the grading and some of the traps that people fall into, which prevent them from scoring a high score on the exam. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there for this video. Perhaps one day when time permits, I could give you a bit more detailed rundown on some of the particular types of essays or some of the other ones that I didn't show you. And then just so you know, if you are interested in having a look at the ebook, it does have a preview version which you could learn quite a lot from. You can go to books or just directly from my menu here, and you can order the book there, pay online with a credit card or PayPal, or if you prefer the hard copy version, you can go on to Amazon.com. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that whenever you buy any of my books, if you read something you don't understand, you're welcome to contact me. Send me an email, ask me a question. Mike, you wrote this on page 10. What did you mean? Why do you say that? You can ask me, and I think that's a really kind of special thing, because most of the time if you buy a book and you don't understand something, then you're just stuck with it. So that's something I like to just offer to people, that I will answer their questions. And it does come with a free task too, so you can write a letter, send it to me, get my feedback on it. You're also welcome to join my website and receive updates, and I'm on Facebook. I've got a Twitter. I don't use that quite so much.